Welcome to my first Facebook Live. I don't even know if anybody's here yet, but I'm trying to learn how this Facebook Live works. Gonna try my best to work my way through it. I scheduled myself for about 30 minutes. Might go shorter, might go longer. It depends. Hopefully, there's a lot of people that do show up. Myself, if you don't know, I do have a full-time job, but I'm also working as a leadership and executive coach. So what does that mean? What it means is that I help guide people, especially new leaders in their positions. These are people who may have been promoted or started their own business or applied for a new job, and they're in a leadership role for the very first time in their life. And initially it's pretty happy to be able to acquire such a position. But over time, some people feel overwhelmed that this position is more demanding than it appeared to be. It requires a different set of skills, a different mindset. And these people, they get demotivated or feel that it's a very hard job that they're not prepared for when they got this leadership position. And what I'm trying to do is help these people make that transition. So I give a very simple analogy when people ask me what type of people these are. I always say I came from an IT background. So I always give an example of if you're a programmer or if you're a salesman and you get promoted to a leadership position, maybe it can be a team lead or manager, maybe even executive. The focus needs to shift from being a star performer on yourself, and it needs to shift to being responsible and looking out for your team, a group of individuals. What got you to that position was doing well based on your own experiences, your own skills, your own accomplishments. But when you're a leader, it changes. You can't be the star anymore. As a leader, your job is to guide and help your team achieve a set of goals. And sometimes you have to make sacrifices. And what this means is you can't toot your own horn. You can't be looking for glory. It's all about the team. So it's a big mind shift for a lot of people, and there's a lot of skills that they haven't been taught as well. Because when you get into that leadership position, it's not like the company or the business sends you into a training course. In most cases, they feel that because you did well in your old job, that you're going to do well in your new job, and that's a false perspective or false uh, way to view a new manager. What that means is that they're setting these new managers up for failure. They're not prepared. They don't really understand what to expect other than maybe what they've read or seen on the internet or maybe even on TV. They may not have gone through that training, nor do they have the experience to understand what being a leader means. It is quite a shift because a lot of people get frustrated and they really don't know what to do. And this is where I want to step in and help. So for the individuals that are looking to take that next step or they are willing to admit that they need help, they'll reach out to someone like myself. And this is where I step in to help them understand what the position entails, what the gaps are between where they are and where they want to be, and to help them set some goals. The goals could be establishing stronger relationships with their teams. The goals could be developing stronger planning or project management skills. Could be anything. As a coach, my job is both, I would say, not just as a coach, it's a bit of a consultant as well, because the difference is a coach guides, whereas a consultant provides answers. Sometimes you have to take on both roles depending on the situation. If a person doesn't know, they don't know, and they may never be able to have that answer formulated in their mind. As a coach, you're trying to pull that out of their head. And if they don't know or they don't have enough experience, you may never, or together, you may never reach that answer. So that's where that consultant part comes in, that you have to help give them the idea and maybe even give them the answer so that they realize what they need to do in order to become a better leader. Like, coaching services isn't for everyone. Uh, there's people that are ready, and there's people that are not. It is an investment in terms of time and money to hire a coach. But like anything, what are you willing to do to get to where you want to go? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one small step. What I emphasize in terms of new leaders is that the key skill that they need is developing strong relationships. Again, when you make that transition from being a solo performer to being a leader, you need to rely on other people. And maybe the traditional old school style leadership is to dictate, to tell people what to do. But in this day and age, that type of management or that type of leadership doesn't work as well anymore. In some cases where maybe it's an emergency situation or there's a critical deadline that needs to be met and the team is unskilled or doesn't know what they're doing, yes, micromanagement can be an option. For example, if it's a group of juniors who need to finish a project within several days' time and they lack that experience, that's where micromanagement could help you in this situation. But in most cases, it's being able to delegate, to ask, to trust your team to be able to achieve the goals that you and the organization or the business has set out for you and your team. What this means is that, again, you need to develop very strong relationship skills. As you move up the corporate ladder, it's less about your technical skills versus developing your relationship skills. It's sort of like the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Again, as an example, just using a salesman as a executive, um, I believe it's maybe a chief sales officer or some similar role. They're not going to be selling directly to their customers most of the time. They're relying on their teams. And because they're not doing the selling, they can't rely on those selling skills anymore. It's not going to help them. Their past experiences and their knowledge may be communicated to their team, but it's not going to help them anymore. This is where you need to build those connections, build those relationships with the team, with the people who report to you, and the people that work with you. I'll give you an example of, or examples of how you can build those relationships. So number one is that I see that a lot of people still see others as resources, not as human beings. And what do I mean by that? When you see people as resources, they're treated as automatons or robots. Again, you're telling them what to do and you expect them to do it. They have no emotions, they have no will, they just execute your orders. But we know that people aren't like that. People don't respond to that type of leadership where you just tell and they do. As human beings, we're all individuals. We all have our own thoughts and our own feelings, our own motivations. And as a leader, you need to recognize that. And this is where building relationships is critical to your success and to the team's success. Number two, like how do I go about building relationships? Well, you start off with a conversation. You could keep it simple. Starting off, maybe it's your first day or first week, first month on the job. What you need to do is start having, at first, the casual conversations. A casual conversation is about asking people or talking about, what they like, how their family is doing, what did you do on the weekend? Very, very simple things. Like sort of like what I call water cooler talk. It's usually not about work. And having these casual conversations builds those bonds between you and your team. You want them, on one hand, to know that you are a human being as well, that you do care and that you have emotions and you have motivations as well, just like them. You are no better than any other person. Just because you have the title of manager or CEO or executive doesn't mean that you are better than the other person. It's just a title. Having those conversations will allow you to start building that foundation for stronger relationships. As time progresses, you're going to have those formal conversations. So, what does that mean? A formal conversation can be a formal one on one where there's a script in terms of what you'll be talking about. For example, have you been hitting milestones, job performance, career development, future goals? Typical things you would discuss on a one-on-one with a team member. Also, these include formal meetings with a set of small group of individuals to a large group of individuals. These are opportunities to talk specifically about job or work or business related topics. But don't let that prevent you from having casual conversations as well. But remember, when you have a meeting, don't waste time. Keep focused on what your intention is in that meeting because time is valuable. Again, you need conversations to build those relationships. So talking about conversations, when you're talking about certain topics, you and the other person may not always understand what the other person is talking about, or you may not be aligned. Again, here's another example. If I ask you to go find me a car that can transport me, my family, and myself from one location to another, what would you get me? Would it be a SUV, a sedan? Well, I was actually thinking of a convertible. What I'm trying to get at is if you don't have a common understanding or alignment of what each other is talking about, you'll never be able to have a productive conversation. What one person says may not necessarily accurately reflect what they're thinking. Words are just a form of communicating one's ideas to another person. And sometimes words is not the best way to do that. For example, you know how they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. The other person may be more visual versus auditory, right? Or another style of learning is being kinesthetic, which means actually doing something, doing a task. That's how they best learn. At the same time, if the other person doesn't understand what you're saying, you and them they'll get frustrated, right? When you're telling them you want a car and they keep bringing you the wrong one, are you expecting that other person to read your mind? No, you have to make it very clear. Set expectations. Be aligned. In terms of a leader-team relationship or in the business world, one common misconception or thing that is not clear to the team is what is the definition of success? For one person, success may be, I show up at 9 in the morning, leave at 5 at night or in the evening, and nothing bad has happened. That's a success. As a leader, you may think success is I've met my project milestones, I've met the timeline. That's a success. Whereas another team member may think Success means I learned something new. I was able to add a new skill to my resume. That's success to them. If everybody has a different definition of success, how can you ever reach it together as a group if you don't understand what each other each person is trying to communicate to one another? Being aligned is not just practical in terms of a leader team member relationship. It works in everyday life as well, between you and your friends, your family, your partner. Be aligned and be very clear about your conversations. The other person can't read your mind, nor can you read theirs. You need to have a common understanding whenever you have a conversation. Or else people may get frustrated or angry, overly emotional. You need to pull yourself away from that. You need to speak logically, right? Let's talk about the facts here. Don't let emotion cloud your judgments or your perception of things. Which leads me to being overly emotional. So when I approach my work, I tend to disassociate myself from the situation. What that means is, regardless of how I feel or what I think of the situation or of the other person, I need to think about the facts. In order to make a very good decision, I need all the information, and I can't let that emotion cloud my judgment. It doesn't mean that you or I have to be a robot. It just means that in certain situations, that it's better to just put that emotion to the side just for a second, view or analyze what is going on, be able to speak to others, gather information, and then make a logical decision. The problem is, if you get overly emotional during a decision-making process, you might not make that best decision. It might be made out of anger or um, hate for the other person, possibly. You need to be able to pull yourself away, think things through logically in order to make level-headed decisions. Okay. So going back to relationships, with this COVID-19 pandemic, it's especially or even more important that you have those relationships, or at least start building those connections and relationships. What's happening now is that I'm hoping you are self-isolated. Most of us are at home, not going outside, so we tend to feel more alone. Right? Not only are you physically isolated, you're also emotionally isolated. Some of you may be lucky enough to have a partner or family you're living with, or roommates. Well, there's others that are just living by themselves. Regardless of the situation, this pandemic is raising levels of fear and anxiety. It's causing a lot of stress for some people. And this is where those connections and those relationships can help you get through this situation. What you need to do as a leader is you need to start reaching out to your team. You may not have done so in the past, but this is the time to start doing more relationship building, because when your team is stuck alone at home, it's a different perspective that they have. Right? When you are physically talking to another person, you can sense or you can see those uh, non-auditory cues, like the body language or the way they move their hands, or it's easier to see how they shift their body. When you're meeting remotely, you lose a lot of that. Even though we do see each other on our screens, you are still losing a bit of that connectivity with that other person. So what can you do as a team member or leader to help your team members. Again, what I said is reach out, but reach out regularly. What I do with my current team is that every morning I have a very short 15-minute meeting or stand-up where we just review what we did yesterday, what we're doing today, and if there's any roadblocks that they're encountering. And at the end of the conversation, I raise a question, is there any other topics or issues that people want to raise up to discuss? It can be something about work, it could be something informal or casual. You want to have those conversations in order to build the relationships. Outside of work as well, again, with your family, your friends, partner, you still need to maintain relationships with them as well. It's not just about your work or business. Being a leader doesn't mean having a formal title. Being a leader also means being a leader in life. You lead by example. You lead by doing. You need to step up in times of crisis. In a social context, in a business context, in any type of context. A crisis right now is impacting everyone. And now's your time to help others. And you can do that by being a good leader. Be that example. Help people out. Right? Lead those groups. So some of you may have seen my posting about holding an event several days ago about building connections and relationships through a mastermind. Using a mastermind is another option of building and maintaining relationships. So the purpose of a mastermind is to help people achieve their goals. And this is done by holding each other accountable, by sharing information, by giving advice, by giving tips, by sharing experiences. So using a mastermind, you're killing two birds with one stone. You are able to not only build those connections, maintain those relationships, you're doing something productive in terms of setting goals and hitting those goals. I myself have been attending a mastermind for about maybe a year to two. And I wasn't sure about what to expect. Excuse me. But what I can tell you that I've found it very productive having accountability partners. It's funny because every week we'll set our goals. So we'll have weekly goals, monthly goals, and yearly goals. And with those goals, you tell the other person what you plan to do, or what those steps are that you plan to execute in order to make those goals. And your accountability partner can help motivate you, can help keep you on track. But if you don't achieve those tasks, you don't achieve that goals, it's on you. And you're the one that feels bad. You're the one that feels guilty. You actually feel like you let the other person down because you verbally told that other person what you were going to do and you failed to do it. Of course, there could be extenuating circumstances or something that was out of control that prevented you from achieving that task or achieving that goal. But in general, it helps keep you accountable in terms of meeting what you need to do in order to achieve that goal. So just to let you know, I'll be holding another event in a week or two. So you didn't miss the opportunity. We had a decent showing several days ago. I hope to expose and teach people the concept about masterminds as well. I find it very beneficial. I'm hoping that it can find, or other people can find that beneficial as well. You should treat this pandemic as an opportunity. The only thing in life you can control are the thoughts in your head. So how do you choose to see this pandemic? Are you busy reading articles or looking at your social media about all the negative things that are happening, sure, I'll admit things aren't the greatest. I'm hoping they will improve faster. There are signs of hope there. But if you constantly read things or see things that are negative, you're only reinforcing that negativity in your own mind and your own spirit. So I'm not saying to avoid the facts about what's going on out there, but you can reduce it so that it's not overwhelming. I know there's some people who read the news constantly, check their news feeds and social media, and they do feel stressed. They feel scared. What I recommend is that you need to reduce that. Stop, or at least just lessen the amount of time you spend online looking at that kind of stuff, and start reinforcing positive thoughts, positive emotions. And again, this is where connections and relationships can help you as well. Right? Be with those people that are positive. Be with those people that make you feel safe. You want to reinforce positive things in your own life, because there is studies that show that having high levels of stress or too much negative thoughts, it does impact your health, right, and your well-being. Why hurt yourself even more? Just maintain those positive thoughts. And as a leader, if you conduct yourself in a negative manner, if you're seeing all this negative news and it gets you stressed, it might get you tense or snappy or angry, your team's going to see that. And their level of respect and their trust in you will reduce or drop, even disappear. As a leader, again, you need to step up. It might be difficult for you, but you need to be positive in times of crisis. People are looking for you to be that rock, that stability that they need. As a leader, you are an example, whether you like it or not. You are, in a way, a role model for your team. Their behaviors will only reflect yours. If you tend to shout at people, they're going to start shouting at people. If you are selfish, they will be selfish. Your behavior leads to the birth of a culture for your team. If you're negative, the culture will be negative, and vice versa. As a positive person, you develop a positive culture, and in turn, your team will be motivated and committed and be very productive. You want to build a positive culture for your team. So I'm going to jump back because, again, when people see other people as just resources, the thinking is, in order to make things better, to be more productive, I need to get people to work harder, to pull more out of them. Whereas it's better to create a positive culture. You're not trying to drain the other person or push them even harder. You want to create an environment where they can do their best. There's quite a difference there between trying to force someone to perform better versus creating an environment where they can perform to the best of their ability. Right? In this positive environment, again, it leads to more psychological safety. The team will trust you even more. And what this means is they have to worry less about being reprimanded or being told what to do or being shouted at, so they can refocus those energies into their tasks, into achieving the goals for you and the team. Also, if they're happy at work, they're happier in their social life, in their family life. I don't believe in a person having different personalities or taking on different characteristics at work and in other aspects of their life. It's not like you're changing personas. You are who you are. The way you think, the way you act, the way you speak, the things you say. Usually they're pretty consistent in all aspects of your life. So the better the environment you can make for your team at work, the better that the other areas of their life can improve as well. Okay, so I see that it's been 30 minutes and I haven't had any questions, but that's okay. This is just my attempt at Facebook Live for the first time. I'm going to go back and watch it, maybe learn from it. Again, hey, growth mindset, everybody. That's what you need, not a fixed mindset. We can talk about that next time. I hope to have more Facebook Lives in the future, see a couple visitors, raise some questions. If you've been watching, thanks for watching. Please visit me on my other uh, social media outlets, my website at www.coachhectorwong.com. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I'll be much more active on Facebook here as well. So thanks for your time. I'll see you again soon. It's a nice sunny day today, so go outside and enjoy yourself. Be safe, be healthy. Don't worry or stress about the things you can't control in your life. And please feel free to reach out to me. It doesn't have to be about leadership or management topics. It can be about anything. Again, during this time, my concern is about your other people's health, other people's safety, other people's well-being, and we can do that by building and maintaining connections and relationships. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks.